London, the centre of British power since the time of the Romans, that great imperial city, now is dead. The reality is it has been taken over by uncontrolled immigration. Now, it's not ceasing to exist, it will continue, but it will no longer be British. It will be instead just a mix, an international city that no longer has any culture of its own, but instead has consumed the culture around it. The reason I say that to you is because of Sadiq Khan. Now, he has made one important change now, which will be the final nail in the coffin for London. And I will explain that just in a couple of moments. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, please do donate to the Patreon Fund. It's the best way to guarantee that we can support patriotic causes up and down the country. Okay. This may sound like a dry topic. Local government planning and indeed local government finance are not ripping topics that most people are absolutely desperate to click on. But Sadiq Khan is now demanding something called additional call-in rights. Now, what is this? It's really, really simple. What happens is, if you apply for planning at your local council, they grant it. Sometimes it goes to panel, more often it's delegated powers. Officers of the council will do it themselves. But for really important things like Wembley Stadium or whatever, the government or indeed the regional mayor can call the decision in. That is to say that the local council has decided to either approve it or not approve it, and Sadiq Khan has decided to either back that or not back that. Okay, now he is demanding call-in powers for developments on the greenbelt. That will mean that all these houses for migrants, and remember that 7 out of 10 new social housing in London go to people who were not born in the United Kingdom. So all the new houses that are being declined in the Greenbelt, in places like Bexley, in places like Bromley, in places like Romford, all of those now will be approvable by Sadiq Khan. There are major concerns in these communities that what is happening now is a deliberate attempt to move them on or move them out. That might be a little bit shrill because, of course, they're not being thrown out of existing houses. Instead, they're being built out with more and more people coming in. But, of course, what will happen is these boroughs, traditionally, the conservative outer London, they will, of course, now become Sadiq Khan's multicultural London, and, of course, they will eradicate the councillors who've traditionally been very supportive of them. Look, I'm not against building houses, and I do have to say, if we've got uncontrolled immigration, it makes no sense to have greenbelt, because what it means is people are living cheek by jowl. Of course, I would like to stop immigration and also protect the greenbelt. But we saw this in the time of Attlee, when I think it was Herbert Morrison said that he was going to put a council estate in every ward in London to ensure that it constantly voted Labour. Well, of course, now that's what's going to happen in these outer boroughs. But I suppose the politics of all of it is not as significant as the problems that will come from societal change, that will come from a lack of social cohesion, that will come from a decline in the quality of schools. Now, don't say that immigrants destroy schools. Of course they don't. What happens is if you have a school, and there are examples of this, where 70% of the children can't speak English when they first come in aged 4 years old, that is a significant diminution of the quality of education for the kids that went there anyway. Now, has to be said, a child who can't speak English age 4 will pick it up relatively quickly, but that does put the class maybe a year behind, which is, of course, catastrophic at that age. So, of course, social cohesion has gone, crime will have gone up. Ignore these people who say that migrants do not cause crime. Well, the point that I would make, not every migrant is a criminal, fairly obviously, but there is more criminality amongst migrants. My own theory is that effectively, because you're not a part of that community, you don't feel invested in that community, you are less likely to respect the rules of that community. Remember the complaints at Zakynthos, Zante, when British tourists were accused of behaving really, really badly by the mayor there. They wouldn't do it in their own town, but they would do it in Zante. See what I mean? And of course, I'm not saying that those ordinary working class British people are bad people. It's just they didn't have the vested interest in maintaining Zante as a nice place in the same way they did in, say, Walthamstow, wherever. So, where are we? Well, more houses are being built, and that may not be a bad thing. But when you are in a position where 70% of social housing goes to people who weren't born in Britain, what ends up happening is that we just build all these houses at great expense to the taxpayer and hand them to people. This development here, where I am, there are 24 social housing tenants, and one person was evicted in favour of somebody who was living in Pakistan when they were allocated the property themselves. I mean, just absolutely despicable. But now the ability to build on all the greenbelt, that is going to be a significant thing. Because remember, many of the boroughs in London now are very, very mixed, and British people are a minority. Now, I will say one thing. London has always been fairly mixed, not to the extent that it is now. And, you know, if you look particularly at the East End, that had a huge ethnic minority population. But now you are looking at a situation where people who define themselves white British are a minority in most boroughs, and that will now become all boroughs relatively soon. Is this a problem? Well, it depends which way you look at it, because Sadiq Khan does not want London to be effectively a British city. He sees the start of this country as when the Windrush boats came from the Caribbean. That's what it is. He doesn't believe that the statues, the history of this country is of any value. He's more like one of the settlers you might get in the United States of America, who had no respect for the Native Americans who already were there. So, if what you want is just an international city that has no real grounding and no connection to the United Kingdom, that's what you're going to get. But I do think that British culture is worth defending, and I do think that London should remain a British city. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not holding my breath. Thank you so much for watching this video. I just want to say to you very quickly about the Patriot Club. I want to say to you that very quickly about the Patriot Club and say that we are funding projects. If you click the link below, there are things like getting people to marches. There are things like paying for taxis for disabled people to go and protest. We bought a couple of beers for some young people, not very young people, who went on the Unite the Kingdom march, and we've donated to the Women's Safety Initiative, and we've helped out people with legal cases that I can't really talk about. Please do click below. Well, also, I just want to say to you, 50% of people who watch these videos are not subscribed to this channel. All you have to do is click the subscription, and loads of you said that by standing up for patriotism, I'm doing something for you. Well, it's really easy. You don't have to necessarily pay money. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. And now I'm just going to say one final thing. Please, I pray, can Sadiq Khan lose the next election? I don't think it's going to happen. I think the worse he does as a mayor of London, the more likely he is to be re-elected. I'll tell you why. Because as the city declines, he is able to blame central government for it. So the worse the city gets, the more he is able to blame the government. And that is the Sadiq Khan strategy. Until next time, arrivederci and goodbye.